Hey guys, Matthew here. So in this video we're going to talk about the V-Ray frame buffer and some of the nifty things it can do that's not necessarily common in all rendering engines. So first off, I want to draw your attention to these little things down here. And you don't need to know about a lot of them, but I'm going to draw your attention to three of the most important. So the first one is this show corrections control option, in which it allows me to begin to do some of the things that Photoshop lets me do without actually ever leaving the frame buffer. So I can begin to do like little minor tweaks before I take it into Photoshop here. So you should be familiar with a lot of these: exposure, white balance, hue, saturation, and levels, curves as well. These are quite common Photoshop manipulation techniques. So you can begin to actually sit there and manipulate the image very, very slightly to save some time in Photoshop, which is really, really useful. The next one are the bloom and glare effects options. So we will see how these work a little bit later because our scene is currently not set up to really show how powerful these are. But just be aware that's how you get to them. So glare is effectively shiny objects having an over kind of shine, lens flares for example, and the bloom effect is that kind of glowing effect you kind of get through a window. So that's there, but the most useful in the actual sequential process of producing a nice image is this show VFB history window, which is right there. And you'll notice that I've already got a couple of things saved here, mainly because I make mistakes as I make these videos. I'm not the most perfect man ever. But if you press this Enable VFB History button, it will ask you to find a particular file path you want to save these images to, and then it allows you to save them out. So if I save out the one we currently have, I'll have 1, 2, and 3, and I can click on them, and I can look at them by double-clicking, but I can also say I want to set the first one to be B, and I want the last one to be A, and I can actually compare horizontally by clicking this compare horizontal button here, and it'll give me a white line which I can use to move between the two images. And I moved the camera slightly so we could highlight this before we started the video. We can flip them over so we change the order between A and B, and we can also compare by holding down. We can compare vertically, which allows us to move the white line up and down instead of side to side. The last thing I want to draw your attention to is pretty much just this save icon here, which allows you to save the file out. Now, if we were doing a full-on kind of intense workflow video, I would be drawing your attention to these EXR formats. But for our purposes, we really just want to save things out as a TIFF. My file, save, and voila. So that's the V-Ray frame buffer. That's the kinds of extra controls you get from it. It's how you save a file out from it after it's already been rendered. And that's the end of this module. So that's just pretty much the basics of how you would want to use V-Ray. So we've gone through the asset editor, we've gone through how to set up a camera, and we've also gone through the basics of how to control the frame buffer. The next module, we're going to go through lighting and materials and how to actually begin to make something that looks a little bit more realistic. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next module.